But when the race is over and you've received the prize, will you be ashamed to see his face? Or will you look him in the eyes as he says, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You let the gospel light shine through your life. You took me at my word. You took the gospel to the world."
This is the sound of economic success. So, anyway, Cindy and her band were very proficient at getting across these borders, and they had to do it all the time. Early in Cindy's, I guess it was probably 1983, in the crew network, the Pakistani crew staff requested special help from Europe to advance some of their ministry programs for a short time in Pakistan. So Cindy and three of her musician friends, they traveled to Pakistan. Cindy said that when they landed at Karachi airport, there was hundreds of people in clothes that she's never seen before out with little stick brooms sweeping the runway. Cindy had arrived in the third world, basically. Okay, so what transpired next was they tried to get their gear into Pakistan, and they were told by the Pakistani customs officials, who were all guys, that you don't have the right paperwork. No, it's not $300. It is $1,500. They were adamant about that. So I think what was happening, they were being shaken down for blood. But so they went back and forth, and CDC was trying to show them the regulations and whatnot, and it wasn't working. And so finally, one last bid, Cindy and Penny went up with Harry to make the final pitch in another language, can we please come in the country? They were told no. So with that, Cindy began crying. And that cued Penny to start crying. So now soon they were bawling. They'd come all this way. They didn't have $1,500 between any of them. And so there's this big scene now. Well, it turns out that was the key to unlock the immigration border doors. In Pakistan, evidently, it's culturally inappropriate and very unseemly for a man to make a woman cry in public. And so then the tables suddenly turned, and so the guy said, "You can come in, come in." And immediately went in. So even though she was very much about following the rules, when it came to the rules weren't working, when she went to tears at her. So let's kick it off now with some of your own memories about Cindy and any volunteers.
She was just a highly skilled musician, incredibly competent woman, and I just have a sweet story from the last several months, actually. So this was in March, and it was just such an honor and joy to get to care for Mom in her final months, and just so sweet, like what the Lord brought out of her, even though she was losing her mind. There were still so many sweet, beautiful things about her spirit that still were communicated to us, and thank you. So I just think it's a cute, funny story, but one of the ways we were trying to just love on Mom was we would sit at the piano and go through songs and sing, and she'd be in her recliner just with her eyes closed, and occasionally have things to add. But so Rach and I were, I think, were you with us, Aunt Barney? Yeah. And Rach was at the piano, and we were just looking up songs on her phone and kind of fumbling through chords of songs that we knew. And we were fumbling through some hymn or something, and Mom just with her, because she couldn't use her left side, but her right side she could use, and she just goes, "I just wish we could get our act together." And we died, and so we really tried to lock it in for the next song, and we did, and we made her cry, and her response was just, "Wow!" and she's crying. I don't even remember which song we did, but we locked it in, and we got Mom to cry happy tears. So.
Cindy long, about 2 years, 2.5 or 3, but so most of that relationship was post diagnosis, but I honestly, I think something that strikes me about her the most is that she didn't complain. Like she, from anything to like losing her mobility and not being able to cut vegetables while she's cooking and stuff, and losing those freedoms, I never heard her. She never complained about any of that stuff. And then we get further down the road, and she's to a point where basically, we're having to lift her and carry her everywhere, and we're basically her hands and feet, and still like unwavering, just like steadfast, wouldn't utter like a word of complaint. And I think that just kind of helped to show me like her faith and her understanding of where her help was and where her strength and her foundation was, being in Christ, and just the fortitude that gave her. I don't think I've seen something like that, and it was an honor to see. And then another thing too, I think Cindy, she's so like task oriented. Like when I first met her, I thought I was in trouble when I was getting into the family, because I was like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to, like, I can't even like remember where my keys are at in the morning, and she's just like got everything down to a T, like scheduled out throughout the day. And for me, that oppositeness, kind of like at first I was like, I don't know if she's gonna really like me, because I'm not that way at all. I'm not organized at all. But something that really like stood out to me is whatever I was like wanting to pursue for a career, which has been a myriad of things, and she was probably losing faith in me a lot, but she always like would take an interest in whatever it was that I was going after. And that to me was like, she beyond just like having all these goals and stuff too, she cared about people. And and that was, I don't know, I felt loved by her, and she's a great lady.
Yeah. It's really hard to think of just one or two memories about your mom to share, but something that has always stood out to me, especially in high school, was how hospitable she was. We always had someone outside of our family living with us in our basement, whether it was a foreign exchange student or interns from a local ministry, or your friends lived with that. Like, she and Dad always opened our doors. But then her ability to welcome people into a warm house, and just the warm welcome. She could cook amazing meals. I remember my senior year at college, she invited over my whole cohort and cooked us, which I was studying nutrition, so it could have been intimidating to cook for all nutrition majors, but she did an amazing job and just welcomed everybody in and celebrated us all and like the accomplishments we had, and it was a delicious meal. But I also remember in high school, I was running indoor track, and I had a friend, Carrie, who lived outside of town. And so for her to come into morning practice, there was like a gap between school and practice. So she didn't really have a place to go rather than drive all the way back out of town. And so I asked if she could come over and get ready with us at our house, which turned into, when Mom said yes, Dad said yes, so she, like, for a whole semester came over and got ready with us in the morning, and Mom would make the best breakfast for us, and Carrie was just like, oh my gosh, who's your mom? Like, and she also was always, I always expect now a baked good when I come over to your house, because she always had cookies or scones or something. But the other thing I wanted to say was, yeah, we've talked about her ability to plan, and she planned my entire wedding, which later on we knew that she did that all with a brain tumor, unbeknownst to any of us. And so, like, the last month or two, we really took over the planning process, but she had done it all. And that just meant the world to the both of us. And it was such a beautiful day, and so amazing that she was able to be with us. And she and Dad walked me down the aisle, which is something I'll never forget. So, miss her a lot. Yeah.
Last week I had my first dentist appointment post-pandemic, and my dentist wants me to get my wisdom teeth removed, which it is related because Mom, one of the weird pictures that is like in my head that is in our family photo albums is a picture of Mom's post wisdom tooth removal, and she's got like chipmunk face with like ice packs bandaged to her face. And I distinctly remember her saying that, I think, Dad, were you guys engaged at that time? I think maybe it was like very close vibes. Either they were already engaged or they were about to be. And I remember her like looking through the photo album with me and pointing at that picture and said, that was the weekend that I knew that I wanted to marry your dad because he cared for me so well. He cared for me so well when I was sick. And she said, make sure you marry someone who knows how to take care of you. Funny story. I was born in Germany. I was born in Würzburg, and when Dad was still stationed in Germany, and my birth story was evidently really hilarious because Mom had very precisely packed her birth bag with, I'm sure, great care. Snacks, you know, pajamas, the whole get-up. And in Germany in the 80s, there were not restaurants open all the time, right? So Dad, on the way to the hospital, decided that he would just sneak into McDonald's real quick while Mom is in labor, like active labor. So Dad is like scarfing down hamburgers in the McDonald's parking lot because he didn't want to drive while with a pregnant labor lady in the car. So they finally get to the hospital. Labor happened. If I'm telling the story wrong, Dad, you should jump in because obviously I was an infant. I was not fully conscious. I was told many, many, many times that Dad got hungry throughout the whole labor process, and he ended up eating all of her labor snacks. And he was munching through the last apple. And all I can say is I'm sorry. Anyways, I just thought that was really funny because when Mom was post brain surgery, where Dad and I were taking shifts feeding her ice chips, and he was illegally eating snacks in the ICU room, and she whispered to me, she goes, it's like your birth. she said something like, he just can't stop, can he?
I think she said something about,
It's like the last apple. Oh, yes. Yes, it's that last apple.
that last apple, yeah.
And later, when she was like post-recovery, we asked her about that moment. She didn't remember saying that at all, but it was so funny. I wanted to read something that I posted online a couple weeks ago. My mom was my first and most meaningful teacher. I'll never have another one like her. She taught me to walk and talk. She taught me to read by sounding out the words of bedtime stories. She taught me how to sew and swim and scoop the water with my hands. And she would let me take naps under the piano while she directed choral rehearsals. When I had the audacity to quit public school in junior high and high school, she became my primary homeschool teacher until college. She gave me music. She gave me my smile, a green thumb for houseplants, permanently rosy cheeks, a full head of hair, and the I sit butt. For the last 2 years, she taught me how to fight cancer with determination and grace, and I watched her relearn to walk and talk. We watched her relearn to play the piano. She taught us new and brilliant vocabulary as her brain reconfigured itself, and even the medical community wanted to learn from her and her cancer fighting. But on June 3rd, she took her last breath. So now we get to learn what life is like without her. Unfortunately, she was a really good teacher. I will forever be her first daughter and a really proud student.
Our mom, Cindy's my older sister by 2 years, and my mom, we were living in Southern California, and my mom went to a Billy Graham crusade, and the three of us girls, not my little sister, but Jenny and myself and Cindy, went to a Circle J outdoor camp. It was a Christian camp, and the gift of salvation was presented, and you were to close your eyes and raise your hand if you wanted a personal relationship with the Lord and you wanted to learn more information. So we didn't know, but all three of us raised our hands. We all were taken into different rooms, but we all came to know the Lord that weekend, and we went home and we shared this news with my mom, and she says, well, I think for her it was more rededicating her life, but going to a Billy Graham crusade in Southern California was an awesome thing at the time. So it was just something we remember. But Cindy's walk with the Lord never wavered. To me, she was like our compass. She's the true, she always was pointing true north, to him. And so that's something I remember. And then one more quick story is, I can't wrap a present without thinking about her. When I was in junior high, I wrapped a present. She goes, you can't wrap it that way. You've got to go along the edges and make it all nice and tight. And so I think I do a pretty good job wrapping a present right now. But I also know that was one area where they knew Cindy was having trouble, was when she came out. It was your shower, right? And she had wrapped a present and it was not all tight. But I still always remember. I will always wrap a present and think of Cindy. So, thanks.
I will start with the serious one and then tell a funny one. Cindy I'm the youngest of 4 girls, and she was 7 years older than me. So when she was in college, I was only like 12, 13. So I loved her when we weren't in the same room. Sharing the same room. In the same room around a dinner table is different. But anyway, I remember one summer she came home from Biola and led a little small group Bible study with me and some girlfriends at my friends. It was called Indian Rock Tree Farm. So on this river, really pretty spot. But Cindy was really talking about how God made you perfectly in your mother's womb. And I remember we were all 12, 13, and you never think of yourself as being perfectly made at that age. And I remember arguing with her at that time, going, no, look, acne, whatever. And she's like, no, you were perfectly made in your mother's womb. So she had a big impact on me and my best friends that summer, and it kept going. But the funny story is, so Cindy got married to Mark in Germany, and I wasn't attached at the time, I was a college student. So I got to go kind of help plan the wedding, and then I got to go a few days before the wedding and help her. And she had had surgery right before, so timing of everything, she was really emotional. And anyway, I remember, because we were in the same room so long, arguing all the time, when we were sharing the same bedroom. This is when I was only like 5 and she was 12. There's a big difference, you know, I'm just annoying. But anyway, in Germany, she's getting ready for her wedding, and she's trying on her dress, and she's sitting in her bedroom crying on the floor, and this big hoop skirt is around her. She's just bawling, and me being the nice sister said, "No one's gonna ever marry you." Sorry, but I really felt that way. I thought, you can't even stop crying, what are you doing? But Mark, you were perfect for her. You married her, she cries just as much as I do, which is all the time, and Jeff puts up with me. So, but you married her anyway, even though she cried on her wedding day and before. But thank you. But I remember clearly yelling at her, "No one's ever going to marry you." And she's probably made her cry even more, which was probably not very nice. But what'd you say? It wasn't very nice. But I really honestly was like, you guys get together, get it together, come on, get it together. So, but okay, Jeff's following.
I'll make mine quick. So yeah, I did serve with Mark during Division in Germany. When they got married, I went to a Pacific concert when Cindy was with Pacific. Met Linda. We went to the PX together. No idea I was going to marry her. And she was really an exceptional person. So just the privilege of getting to know her. But when Mark asked for memories, what I remember about, I mean, there's a ton, but one thing I can pull out about Cindy is that she was a fighter. She loved to compete. And so every time they came to our house in Atlanta at Christmas, she and I would get into these ping pong matches. She would get this look on her face, like, "I'm going to kick your ass in a minute," you know? And she would. And then we'd play tennis together. And, oh man, she ran me like a dog on the tennis court. She just loved to compete. And
I think she got that from her dad.
Right, yeah.
you're right. That's another whole story. But anyway, that's my memory of Cindy, and maybe one more about throwing a rock at a skunk, but that's another story. Thank you.
I too want to say she was very good at music and very good at speaking languages. And, oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank. She also could put a chair outside and draw perfect mountain trees with the animals. She was gifted like that, and I'm not, none of these things. And she married a great guy, and forever we will be thankful for the care that he gave her in good health, but also through her sickness, the Petersons. But there is one fault to Cindy. Time management was not her forte. Time management, she had problems. She was forever late to everything. But, and I'm just going to list one, and that was a high school homecoming. And there were 4 girls in our family. We had another girl, Linda wasn't old enough, but another girl was living with us for the year. And we had 4 people going to homecoming, and we made our dresses and time management. Her date came to the door, and Cindy had not finished hemming her dress. So I'm just saying, time management was not her forte. But everything else, Cindy was wonderful. I mean, and another thing is, Mark and Cindy had a gift for international students that was phenomenal. So I just think that was Not something I have a gift of, but Mark and Cindy, yes.
I'm John Miller. I'm with Jen, but I'm one of the brothers-in-law, and like Margaret Ann was saying, I couldn't have asked for a more wonderful sister-in-law. She was just superb. I don't have any real stories to tell. Except maybe one, but mine has been just more of a years, decades of observation, just watching and admiring Cindy over 4 decades. I met Cindy sing at our wedding 41 years ago, sang and performed piano. So that was my first introduction to Cindy at any great extent. And she did superbly, by the way, as you can imagine. But my observations of Cindy have been have been through mainly family events. We most of the time we lived apart. We were cross country or somewhere, but we didn't live near each other at any point. So it was usually family gatherings, Thanksgivings, Christmases, summer vacations where we'd go camping. A lot of it was in Northern California, camping in the Sierras, or we had a trip to Disney World at one point. But those types of things where you could just observe perfection. And in her case, I saw her as a loving daughter, a loving sister, a loving mother, a loving grandmother, a loving aunt, a loving friend. And for those here who are friends with her, you couldn't ask for a better friend. And so my sense of her was that she gave so much, and in fact she overextended herself sometimes because she was so giving. But there was a quality of love attached to everything that she did, I thought. And this is just me kind of watching her and listening to her. And then we saw particularly Mark and Cindy a number of times in Northern California, just separate trips that they would make out. We spent a lot of time with them. I was always so impressed with Cindy. And then she believed in a legacy, and I know she's got the legacy of her children and grandchildren. You couldn't ask for anything better. But I think to me, her biggest legacy is her faith and the way she lived it. And even through the toughest of obstacles, she was able to just soldier through and through her Savior, Jesus Christ, and continue to demonstrate that till the very end. And that to me is the legacy that I take from her. So, and I'll very much miss her as we all will. So, thank you.
Sister-in-law, and like everybody here, we were very impacted by her giftedness. She was so gifted musically, which we've already talked about. She was so gifted linguistically. She was a gifted chef, cook, baker specifically. And in fact, back to linguistically, I was so impressed by the fact that she could speak all these languages other than English. And she helped us as we traveled in Europe so many times. And one time in particular, our whole family had gone to Poe, where Mark was teaching under a Fulbright scholarship, I think, wasn't it?
No, it was the exchange program.
Oh, something else distinguished. But anyway, so there we were, and Mark was teaching, and the rest of us wanted to go tour a local castle, which was quite a landmark. And we got there only to find out that the tour guide spoke absolutely not a word of English. Usually, anywhere in Europe, you find people who speak English. You can stumble through it anyway. But this one, not a word, all French. So we knew Cindy's work was cut out for her. So we're touring this castle, and she's listening intently, and he's talking, and then she would pause and think, and then she'd turn around and say, "He said they use these rooms for." And then we'd go a little further, and she was going through this so slowly. It was the first time I'd ever seen her kind of stymied by language. And finally she turned around and she said, "Please forgive me. He has a southern accent." I just can't understand him. Which was, who knew? The French have southern accents. We've certainly got that. She was, and to Sue's point, what a wonderful woman of God. What an extraordinary woman. I will always miss her.
Cindy's brother-in-law, and she and I had a very, very special bond because she was the sister-in-law and I was the brother-in-law, so we were like two of the only people that weren't blood-related. As we all traveled around the world together, Munich or Montreal or we traveled for years, all of our life, really, as a family. But one time I remember we were in Kentucky at a reunion or something, and where Margaret Ann's family is from, and we always had to travel in 2 cars, and we had Margaret Ann's mom and dad and Tim and Mark, Margaret Ann were in 1 car. Cindy and I were in the front car. I was driving, she was next to me, and we had all the girls. We had all of these little munchkins when they were teenagers. And Cindy, I was doing genealogical research, and Cindy was always curious about that. And so she was sitting over there, and she would throw her hair back as she did. And she would say, "So Don, tell me, in all your research, did you find out you were related to any American Indians?" And I said, "Well, Cindy, it's so interesting you should bring that up." I said, "I just found out recently that my great-great-grandfather on my mother's side was full-blooded Indian." I said, his name was Brandon, but his Indian name was Fallen Rock. And she said, "Oh, Fallen Rock." I said, "Yeah, turned out he was a hunter. He wasn't sheep really. He was just a lowly hunter. And he went out hunting one day and he never came back." She said, "Oh, that's terrible." And I said, "Yeah." I said, they looked for him, they put out signs, they combed the mountains, they had posses out looking for him for years. They looked for him. But I mean, they had signs everywhere. I said, "There's one right there." And she looked up and it says, "Look out for Fallen Rock." I had a great capacity of being able to trick her over and over and over. And she always trusted me. Which was a big mistake, actually.
So this is one of our family favorites that we always come back to. So I was probably about 7, and our families went to the beach, and they had these little talent shows, and I'll never forget this. And Emily, I think, performed a song. Emily was probably 8, and Angela, I guess, would have been 3 or 4. 3. And so Emily performed a song by herself, and I wasn't really planning on doing anything, but she wanted Angela to go, and she was like, "Hey, Angela's gonna sing Oh Mr. Sun. Why don't you go up and do it with her, and you guys can do it together?" I don't know that song. And she's like, "It'll be great, let me do it." I'm thinking, Angela can go. And she's like, no, go together. Like, I'll give you the motions, and you can we know the words. So she taught me the words real quick right before we're about to go there. And I'm thinking, I don't know this song. And she's like, it'll be great. So we go up there, and I'm just thinking yeah, sure, fine. I'll never forget this. But we get up there. So me and Angela, I hold Angela's hand. We have footage of this. I hold Angela's hand, and we go up there, and she's just this tiny little tot with these big chunky thighs and her little cute ruffles, and we're in our dresses, and we're all cute. So I'm holding the mic, and I'm very unconfident in what I'm about to sing, because I was just shoved out there. And I'm just watching Cindy, not happy. But I'm singing the songs, and I don't know what I'm singing. And I'm thinking, hey, we can do this together. And right when we start singing, Angela, the whole time, just does this. And she just, with her little chin up, just watched me do this the whole time. And Cindy's on that sideline going, "Mr. Sun." And I'm up there not doing motions, and just trying my best to barely remember the words. And she was just so proud of us. We managed to get through it. Angela, we get a round of applause. Angela just stood there and she did her curtsy. And we walk off, and I will never forget that, of just her being like, "It'll be great. But I've never forgotten."
Follow that up a little bit. When I think of Cindy, the one word that comes to me is depth. And that depth came from a breadth of experience, but also from her experiences as not just a music educator, but an educator. And one of the things that some of us laugh about is the knack she had for asking very probing questions because of that depth. And I remember the last time she asked me one of those, and generally when I heard "So Tim," I don't know what's coming next. So this time I kind of perturbed her because she asked me, "So Tim, what are your goals for this year?" And I looked at her and I said, I'm retired, I don't have any goals. She kind of scratched her head. But again, those kind of probing questions came from that depth that she had, and I will certainly miss that.
So I think I'm very similar to Cindy. I'll share the funny story first. I was a missionary, and so after college, and Mark and Cindy flew me out so I could come speak at FCA. And when I flew into Denver, Cindy picked me up, but there was a massive snowstorm coming in. And so my dad's on the phone trying to find any hotel available before the road closed. Well, the road closed between Fort Collins and Laramie, and the only hotel room available left was, I think it was a Days Inn, but it was the honeymoon suite. And so there was rose petals and a heart-shaped hot tub with full-length beers around the pool. And this king-size bed. And it was like, well, I guess we're getting really close, Cindy. It was, yeah, a memory I'll never forget there. Needless to say, the roads opened the next morning. We got to come back to Laramie, but that's a funny one. She just was extremely intentional, and I'm honored to have been able to be a recipient of who she was. Yeah, I had food allergies for a while, and so she just was extremely intentional in what she cooked and what she made for you when you were in town. And I just remember, like, she's like, okay, I can make you anything you want. When I came back from the 40 with Strom, what do you want? I go, all I want is a bowl of brown sugar with maple syrup. She's like, okay, I got that. So, anyhow, and she just talked to me about, it just was intentional to know everything about the trip and just what it was. And anyway, so I just loved her intentionality to make you feel like you were the only one in the room. So.
And for years they were telling me to go. I learned about it years ago through a friend who actually knew you guys. So it's just a funny series of events that got us together. But this common thread of Cindy loving people well. I got to see that before I was part of the family. The year that Joe and I were in Strong, we were both interns, and after that program was done, for about a month I had nowhere to go, as did one other of the interns. So Cindy offered a downstairs bedroom to my buddy and I, and we got to just be enveloped by the love and the hospitality and the joy and care and the great food, all these themes that are coming through here before we were even a thing, before I was remotely part of the family. And so I had the very beautiful gift of seeing that love and that joy and that just I learned about their high involvement in the foreign exchange student program and things like that. And I knew there was something special, there was something very unique, very rare in that home, and it was beautiful. I was so welcomed in that family that we even watched one of the nights I was there after Strong. We watched home videos, some of which my wife was in. Various vacations they had. Some of which were actually in a place right near where we lived in Coloma, Northern California. And there's pictures of Cindy and her family. There's videos of my wife singing on rocks. And they're all together. And I could just tell this dose of seeing who Cindy was and just being welcomed and embraced by her in her home for almost a month is a memory that I cherish and never forget. She's a beautiful, amazing, loving person. I won't forget her.
What I remember most about Cindy is I think the first time was she was leading worship at the church up here. And I'm like, wow, you know, she did a super job, and it was awesome. And then the other things is her baking and her cooking. And to me, she kind of always went overboard because it was almost like she was always fretting what she was cooking because she's always trying new stuff, it seemed like. And it had to be just right and stuff. And I mean, it was always great. And there's one thing that you kids are going to find out. The thing you're going to really notice when her being missing is, like my mom, I think what I miss is the baking. I mean, the smell in the house, the baking, laughter. I mean, that's one thing about Cindy. She always had a smile. She
joyful.
Joyful, yeah. And another great thing was you guys being believers of Jesus Christ. That was a big part. And it's Angela. It's awesome that you're part of God's world, and yeah, it's just amazing. It says the fifth commandment: honor your father and mother, and it'll go right with you. And so the first one we honor is Jesus Christ, and if we honor our parents, it's going to go good for you. So we just thank you guys for being great followers of Christ and what you guys have done. And you guys are a marker for, I mean, just watching everybody around here, the young people especially. You guys have made an impact on them, and that's what we're supposed to do. So thanks for being there.
I just want to also add too that one word that comes to my mind is perseverance. She was determined, but she did it in God's strength, and it wasn't in her own strength. And that was an opportunity for her to really show Christ through her actions, her speech, just her walk. And I think that's dynamic. I think it's contagious. I think it's just full of joy and full of purpose, God's will in her life. And so very honored to be a part of this. Thank you for inviting us.
As far as her being so caring and hospitable, James broke his elbow right off the bat, and she, both Mark and Cindy just took him in, and Rachel they were just like this health-caring staff, and I was coming down from Buffalo, and they were making dinner and all these things, and I was just like, I'm supposed to be doing that for you, because they were caring for my son, and yet they were sitting there taking care of me. And so I remember just stopping for a second and saying, wow, this seems really backwards, but so sweet. I felt so loved, and of course, James was taken such good care of, and I just was so grateful for Cindy and Mark and Rachel, just all of you there. I couldn't help but just sitting here, and the train was going by, and I kept seeing the flag go by, and at this time of year, I was just thinking of the blue and, the freedom that we have, and blue representing God's commands, and just that we have that freedom because of the hope and the brave. Well, I can't help but think of the parallel with Cindy and everyone here, really, because everyone played such a role, especially with that caring bridge, but just she is home. above that through Christ. And, you know, I just think we're just so blessed to be here in America, and so many people wanting to come to America with more of that freedom that they sense, you know, where he's like, you know, his commands you shall not murder or steal or bear false witness, lie. That's what our country is founded on. So it blesses me so that my son married into a family that truly honors Christ. She is such an example. I can't imagine the intimacy that she must have with Christ in identifying in the suffering. I read this thing once, and it was Richard Wurmbrand, where he was actually very much tortured in another country, but he was saying that when he got released, that he almost missed the suffering because the intimacy he had with Christ. And I was just like trying to think of that. And I just think of just how sweet her faith was and how sweet that intimacy must have been with him in that suffering. And just I just really feel like it was like a journaling for sure, and talented writers and all along, all these gifts, but such a scrapbook of perseverance that the families just had for everyone, that no matter what we face in times to come, he's with us, and by his stripes we are healed, whether it's right into his arms at that timing or before.
And we knew Cindy during Mark's years at PhD at Georgia Tech. Haven't heard too many people talk about that period of their life. She was a music director at a non-denominational, seeker-sensitive church modeled after Willow Creek in Chicago that we all went to. And if there's one word that stood out about Cindy during those years and in that role at Buckhead Community Church was radiant. She just was radiant. And there are a lot of wonderful music directors at churches that we've all had an experience, but that stood out. So many people, when they sing and perform, they have this intensity or whatever, but like the sisters in it, but she's this smile, this joy-filled that drew you to her. And that was something that really separated her. I mean, she's talented, and we've all heard tonight. Her voice was professional. She was professional. She was confident. She was experienced all her years in Germany. And she didn't miss a beat. She was also, her voice was angelic, it was sweet, and it was strong. And I just want to thank all of you all for the memories that you're kind of filling in for the gaps for us, because another thing she did in her role as a music director, several times she headed up a children's musical, and it was a pretty big role that she took this project on. And listen to you all talk now, it's almost like it was like she was put on a Hollywood movie or something. She took it so seriously and had such high standards for all these little kids. It wasn't like just your little hunky whatever children's Christmas musical or spring musical. It was top notch. And I just thank you all so much for sharing so much more about Cindy. And I'm going to let you say something, I might say something else.
One of those musicals was named We Like Sheep. The song meant, we like sheep, we like sheep. We like sheep because sheep is what we are. It was so cute, so cute. Cindy was competent and poised, absolutely God-given, beautiful voice, and it almost brings me to tears just to think of her voice. And that was one of the things I enjoyed most on the trip that we made with you all in September, October last year. On the car on the way back, we finally got Cindy to sing. And unlike us, she knew the words to all the songs. All the songs. But that voice was still there, it was still rich and beautiful, and just like it was originally. I wanted so badly to record her at Buckhead Community Church. And I checked on that. I said, no, you can't because of copyright rights. I wish I had just done it anyway. But anyway, there are a couple of things that come to mind with Cindy, and I think you all have done a beautiful job representing her, and I just thank every single one of you. Her faith, yes, that was her. That was her. Her steadfastness, that 1 Corinthians 15 verse, that was her. Cindy cared about faith. She cared about faith. She cared about her own faith. She cared about all your faith. But what she really wanted was to give that care of faith and the belief and faith to everyone else. She realized that God puts us on this planet, gives us something that only He can give. That's called life. And we've never been able to duplicate that. Only God can give you life. And He gives us a lifetime. And in that lifetime, we have to make one decision, whether we're going to have faith in Jesus or not. There's no in between. You either have it or you don't. If you have it, you get paradise with Jesus forever, which is where she is now. If you don't, you don't. So that was Cindy. I think that was the one thing that really resonated with me as I was thinking about all the times that we've known you all for 33 years. And we were with you a lot in those first 7 or 8, how long you were now. And it's just an absolutely stellar couple that we have enjoyed so much, and we feel so privileged to be here tonight. So thank you all very much for including us.
Just because you said radiant, well, I was on a fast and just having some time with the Lord, and it was a 21-day fast. And in this 21-day fast, and I started having lots of dreams. I mean, vivid dreams. Well, I had this dream that I was at a wedding, or I was going to a wedding, and when I got to the wedding, I saw some people I knew when I got into the wedding, and they got up and said, "Oh, let's go outside and we're going to talk outside before the wedding starts." And I said, "Okay." And when I walked outside, I saw the people lining up the wedding procession, the people that were going to walk down the aisle. And I thought, I'm going to go back in because they're about to start. I said, "You guys are starting?" And they said, "Yes." So I go back into the wedding and sit down, but the other people stayed out, and then the doors shut. And as I was sitting there came the wedding procession, and as they walked in, you couldn't see anything below. They had banners, so you couldn't see any faces. All I could see was like their skirts, their feet walking. And so as they were walking through the procession, I could see the first person, second person, and they had these flags. And then in a split second, there was a purple banner, and that came down, and it was Cindy's face. And her face was radiant. That's why I stood up, because her face was radiant. She was glowing and smiling. It was beautiful. And that was that split second. And so I thought about the return of Christ. And the wedding procession is like it's just symbolic of His return. There were 5 in Matthew 25. It talks about the 5 wise virgins and the 5 unwise. 5 were ready, 5 weren't. And so the ones that weren't ready, they were trying to get oil from the ones that were, and they said, "No, you're going to have to go and get oil, go back, sell, and get what you need." But of course, by the time they went back, it was too late because the door was shut. And once the door closed, there was no more entry. And so when I had that dream, and I shared it with Mark, and Mark shared with me that Cindy's favorite color is purple. Also, purple represents royalty, and that was a royal color as she walked in there, but in that line. And it also quickened me to think, the days are short, and if you don't know the Lord, and even if you say you could be a mouth professor and not a heart. You can be a heart, a mouth professor, but not a heart possessor. With the things of God, just speaking about the Lord, but is He your Lord? It's you make Him Savior, but He needs to be your Lord. Like Cindy was steadfast. That was her Lord. That was her Savior. So it's almost like the Lord showing this procession about, you know, be aware of your relationship with the Lord. That has to be your everything. That is your first thing, because He wants to be Lord of our lives, not just to say, oh, Jesus is my Lord, or I'm saved, or I'm a Christian, but you're not walking the walk. Because to be a Christian is to look like Jesus, and that means you'll do the things He did, and you know, and you'll walk in the love, joy, peace, goodness, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, all the fruit of the Spirit, which Cindy was. She was love, joy, peace, goodness, kindness, meekness, gentleness, self-control, long-suffering. She was all of those things. That's Galatians 5:22. And I thought that is what the Lord is saying, to be, you know, to let Him be Lord, and to serve Him with all your heart. And so that showed me where Cindy is, and she's not here, but she's more alive right now than we are right now, because the Lord keeps saying that don't look at what you see, because what you see is not more real than what you don't see, because eternity is a long, long time, and we want to spend it with Him, and we get there, we don't want Him to turn us away, but we want Him to say, enter in, well done, my good and faithful servant. So I know that's where Cindy is, and that the Lord said, well done, Cindy, you enter in. So she's having a good time with Jesus, because I know she loves Him. Amen.
I'll share. When you said what words to think of, Miss Cindy, a scripture came to my mind right away, and it's 3 words. 1 Corinthians 15:58, it says, therefore be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor is not in vain. And when I think of her, I think of that, steadfast, immovable, always abounding. And she taught my kids music and the whole neighborhood kids music. When you're 5 or 6, 7 years old, you don't know anything about the piano, you need a little bit of steadfastness. She had it. And, you know, just encourage Rachel, James, Angela, Brock, Miss Emily, and Brother Mark through the week. Now, we saw her illness from afar. Praise God for Karen Bridge, and it was just amazing to be able to read the notes. But all through the time, not only in Cindy, but in all you all, I just saw steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, and knowing that your labor is not in vain, and all that you poured into and everybody else, it's not in vain. And it's a great joy to know the Petersons. It's a great joy to be a neighbor of Miss Cindy for all those years. Amen. And she did lead Moms in Touch at the elementary school. My wife took over for Cindy after she went on. So praise God for that. It's a joy to be here.
Just everything that as people are talking, and you can see the pictures in their mind. I think everything about Cindy is like watching a movie. I can picture everything that I'm about to say. But I think Rachel was 6 months, or Olivia was 6 months, Rachel was a year when we first met the Petersons and got to grow with them. And my word for Cindy is bridge, because I had a dream that there was a bridge between our houses, and we were sharing a swimming pool, and that was way before, I wrote it down in my journal, and it was way before Mark and Cindy got the transfer here, and didn't ask. It was just like, they didn't approach us, or I don't know, it just happened. We were like, you're gonna have the upstairs, we're gonna have the downstairs, and this is gonna be perfect. It was just kind of an automatic. But whenever that happened, I felt like I was like this with Cindy, like, I'm gonna watch you, I wanna be like you. And those are vivid memories. I know, like, during that time when Olivia was 12 and Rachel's 13, Angela's 16, right? We went on those walks, and I thought you were such a woman. And then when Olivia was 16, I was like, she was a baby. You know, these adult talks, right? And of course, and babysitting along. I can't believe I babysat you. That was weird, but anyway, my most fondest memories of things that I observed, because I mentioned the age of our kids, because it's kind of a really busy time in your life. And Cindy was like, well, we're gonna put dinner in the dining room, okay? And I was like, yes, we eat in the dining room. We never ate in the dining room. We're like, I'm eating and they're eating separate. We're just like not eating. And then for dessert, what do y'all want? It was like, oh, and there's dessert? Okay, there's always dessert. It was so cool. And then my really
most important, and you guys should write this down if you know, was every night when Mark was there, they sat outside on the chairs out by the pool, and I would watch them through the window, like, what are they talking about? They just talked and they communicated, and she, again, that bridge thing, she would bridge, like, learn about you and just form this connection that is so beautiful and so very individual and very personal. And so at the end, I said, when y'all moved, I said, Mark can go. I'm keeping Cindy. Greg can go too. I'm keeping Cindy, and we're staying. But as long as they gave me custody of Rachel, I was good. Yes, and I'll always have that, right, Mark? That's right. Yes, yeah. But anyway, the way that you guys related to each other, it formed that foundation that built on everything else. You know, so it's a good thing. Love you guys.
I met Cindy probably like four years ago, but I was impacted by her before that. I met Rachel when I was a freshman, or before I was a freshman. I was in high school when I met her, and I spent hours and hours at your guys' house before I even knew you. This is like, I never wondered, like, I was like, wow, Rachel has a really cool house. Like, hung out with the SA people there. And then it was years later when I was a junior in college that I actually met Cindy. It was at the interview for the worship position that I was applying for the church. I was the worship leader for the church that the Petersons went to for 3 years in college. So I was on this Zoom interview with Mr. Peterson, Mrs. Peterson, and like the rest of the staff that was hiring me. And I was getting interviewed, so they're asking me questions, and the pastor would ask me a question like, how long you played guitar for? And then Mr. Peterson asked me questions like, what's your favorite part about worship? And after everyone was done with their questions, like I could see over the Zoom camera that Cindy was like, all right, now it's my turn. And I was like leaning in, she just had amazingly hard questions. Like dang, this is a bigger position than I thought. I'm this job. She just asked me incredible questions. So somehow I got the job, and I got first like couple of weeks leading worship for Emmaus Road Church. I knew that Cindy really cared about worship, and I was kind of intimidated. I was like, man, this woman knows what she's talking about, and she really wants me to do it well. And so I was intimidated, but she was always so kind. Like, she was I could tell that she was behind me. She was, even though she was definitely the expert, and I was the young noob who was trying to take on this job of leading people in worship, she was always there to encourage me. And what was even more important than that was she was always there to help me. Like, she gave me amazing advice. She'd come up to me and be like, I'm praying for you. I started writing music, and she was like my biggest supporter of all the people that I knew. She was probably the one that prayed for me the most in that, in writing music. And so, yeah, Mrs. Peterson was very special in my years in learning how to lead and learning how to do music and worshiping. If I could say one word, she was confident in who she was, not just in her abilities. She was very competent and confident, but she was confident in who she was as a daughter of God. She would stand up against the grain. She would say what was true, no matter what people thought. And I really love that about her. I really appreciate it.
Not family, but I have so much gratitude for the Peterson clan and all the marriages that have come out of that, so all the other last names. But Cindy was a great listener and a great challenger. So I knew if I got in conversation with Cindy, I was going to be heard, seen and known, and then I was going to be challenged. And it was a little intimidating, but for me, we met at a really formative time in my life when I was in college. And really my first memories were Rachel and 3 of our friends were living in the Peterson home, and the Petersons came back, the friends moved out, Rachel was still there, but I was used to just walking right on in, and I just walk in and Cindy's at the piano hello? And I was like, hello, Mrs. Peterson, Cindy. I'm sorry, I don't know why I just walked into your house. That's rude. I'm so sorry. And just from that moment, she just was like, no, you're part of the family now. And just many, many fond memories. But I think when I picture Cindy, when she was doing something she loved or just something really fun, it was almost like she was whimsical and floating on air. And specifically, Rachel and Cindy went out to Florida for a music conference, and my family is big Disney freaks. So we, of course, happened to be there at the same time because we're there all the time. But it was really fun. Cindy could only go into the parks for one day, or no, we gotta go 2 days. But yeah, we went one night, and we met in Magic Kingdom at like 8:30 p.m. and we were staying till midnight. And I hustling in to meet Rachel and Cindy, and I swear Cindy was acting like she was 12 years old. She was sprinting around the park and like, let's ride Haunted Mansion, let's go to Space Mountain. Like, it was just crazy. Like, I just was exhausted, and it didn't even feel like we were tired though. And so that's one of my favorite memories. And just really realizing that sometimes it's awkward when you're growing spiritually to open up with your own mother. And because my mom's an awesome mother who has faith, but sometimes it's awkward to open up. And Cindy was someone that I really could open up with and ask really hard questions. And her being, I'm in full-time ministry now, she was like the best cheerleader. And Mark and Cindy were my first supporters financially, but also first people praying for me to go into ministry. And Mark and Cindy, speaking of hosts, just have hosted desserts in their home, asking people to like join my support team. And that's just meant so much to me. And I'll close with, I always feel like I'm in the right place at the right time, but I really do think it's God's intervention that I was supposed to walk this life along with the Petersons. But Cindy had just been diagnosed, and I was visiting town. I live in Atlanta now. And I was visiting town, and I was actually leaving to go back to Atlanta, to go back to my summer job, running an internship. But for whatever reason, the timing was perfect, and the Petersons needed their car. And so I drove their car down to the hospital, and I just figured I would just drop the keys off. And it was a really intimate time that they were facing a diagnosis. So I really just wanted to drop the keys and head to the airport. And Rachel said, Mom wants you to come up. And yeah, I just walked in, and on the hospital board where it says who your nurse is, it said Exodus 14:14, the Lord will fight for you. And I just think that was such a testament from day one to the very last day, that she was steadfast and she was strong, and she's such an incredible woman to try to emulate my life after. So I'm thankful for Cindy, and I don't think a day has gone by or will go by when I'm ministering to young college women that I don't think of Cindy.
I'm Carol Adams, this is my husband Bruce, and we know Cindy through tennis. We know the competitor. And we also know all of these other wonderful things. The things that I've learned tonight about her are amazing to me, that she is so much more than we just knew the surface of her. But we knew her through church, we knew her through worship team. But Bruce and I started playing tennis many years ago, and I tell you, Cindy is one of those people you don't want to be across the net from Cindy. Because when she makes a run for that net and she goes for that volley, she's got it, right, Mark? She's got it. And when she was diagnosed, she was walking out one day, our team was all walking out, and she turned to me. She said, I wish there could be just one more tournament. She knew her days were numbered. She knew this was going to be, her strength would be leaving her, but she was still at the peak of her abilities. And I turned to the coach, and we saw each other. And she said, we're gonna do a tournament. And so together in 2 weeks, we put together a humdinger of a tournament, and it was uplifting, and we were family. And she felt it, we felt it, and it gave her hope, it gave her courage, and it gave all of us a reason to keep trying. You know, we're all middle-aged, and here we are, we're playing tennis. And I have to laugh right now, I'll tell you, our team is going to Colorado to compete against over 40. We're over 60. So this is 20 years. And it's because of Cindy that we're going again. She named the team Cindy's Red Hots. We all wore red hots, so it's long in the family tradition. But because of her, we said we've got to go again. And so we're going, and we're competing against over 40s. And we're competing with courage, perseverance, determination. this girl came back from her brain tumor surgery, and she told all of us, my occlusive vision is gone. 70% over here is gone. She found the ball every time, not kidding you. She had a backhand that was just glorious, and it was powerful. And she would turn her head and she would find that ball, and it was the old Cindy, and we'd all say, she's back. We couldn't believe it. She played like a champion every time, and she expected us to be that way too. So we're carrying her spirit with us when we go to Denver, and we're feeling like we're maybe 41 and a half. I have to tell you, I am a jokester. I love to tell great jokes, and sometimes they're not so great. And Cindy was so gracious. Sometimes she'd roll her eyes and say, Carol. You know, Cindy, you can see her face. But I decided in her honor, we're taking a Russian team to Denver. And I'm going to be Carol. I'm a joker. We've been watching Wimbledon, if nobody understands why the Russian. And my friend who's playing next to me is going to be Lori, get it over. And I think maybe Bruce would be the one. He's our mascot. Who would be Bruce? I can't bend over. I tried these on Rachel. She said it was okay. So, one of the other players can be, is it hot enough? She's hot enough. Because it's so hot down there. I will just die. One of the other players will be called, what the hell, Inca? Forgive me. The other one that I really like is, I'm so Sorenko. But Cindy, we're saving the best name for Cindy. And her name is Cindy, it's not over. And it's not over. It's just beginning for her. And she gave us so many reasons to be proud, to keep trying, to never get up. And I tell you, when she was in that last tournament, her leg was like a stick. And she described it to me. She said, it's a piece of wood. I can't feel it. But she didn't quit, and she was paired with one of the Cowgirls. We were so privileged. Each one of us got to play with our Cowgirls tennis team. And she had a wonderful teammate. And at one point, she stumbled and fell to her knees. And the whole place was just silent. It was like, maybe this is the end. Cindy can't do this. And she got up, all bloody-kneed, and she won the tournament. And this is a testament to strength and character. And I know you're talking about that competitiveness. You see it in her eyes. We went to Denver once before, and I was co-captain with her. And I remember she would say to us, you know, who wants to play singles? And we'd all look down, we'd look cool. And you know what? Cindy would play singles just because she needed to. She needed to show us the way. And she has always shown us the way. And she continues after her leave taking to show us the way. And so, you know, Bruce is fortunate. He plays tennis as well, and he's gotten to be her partner a couple times. And she's just the ideal partner. She's the ideal leader.
Much, much better than the sport.
Yeah, when Bruce plays with Cindy, it's like, get it over. So our Russian team this year, I hope you'll be thinking about us in September, because we've got our red hats, and we're still called Cindy's Red Hots. And we carry her spirit, her fighting spirit, with us. And Mark, I gotta say, this is just such a privilege for us to be here and to represent the tennis community who is family. We're family. And we feel like it tonight. Thank you.
You took me at my word. You took the gospel to the world. You let me give you strength to live your life.